The importance of cyber diplomacy. Welcome to Threat Talks. My name is Lieuwe Jan Koning, and the subject of today is all about the role of diplomacy and especially cyber diplomacy in the world. Let's get on to it.
Welcome to Threat Talks. Let's delve deep into the dynamic world of cybersecurity.
Let me introduce my guest of the day, and I'm really thrilled he is here. His name is Ernst Noorman, and his current position is, and I have to use my card for this, the Ambassador at Large for Cyber Affairs on behalf of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. That's a lot, and it is a lot, and we'll get into that in a minute. Ernst has a long career in international affairs, in diplomacy. I mean, he's been in India, in Tanzania. He played a crucial role in the introduction of the euro currency. That's a big feat. And he's been the ambassador on behalf of the Kingdom of the Netherlands for Burkina Faso, Suriname, Colombia, and even Afghanistan during wartime. And that is a tough job, being away from your family. We can all imagine a little bit how that must be. So who else to talk to if we want to know the value of diplomacy and what it brings us to the world? Ernst, welcome.
Thank you, Lieuwe.
This sounds like a very international job. So how many countries have you been traveling to this year?
This year so far, maybe, around 10 countries. I went to Nigeria, India, United States, and of course, Geneva, Paris, Brussels, Berlin, just around. And I will go tonight to Tokyo and next week to Seoul. And I can assure you that those will not be my last trips this year.
I can imagine, yeah. So you must have a strategy that I want to learn about on how to cope with jet lag then.
Yeah, I mean, I just ignore it. Actually, that's more or less what I do. Just arrive and do as if it's the normal time. And don't think too much about jet lag, because then you start feeling very tired and just ignore. That's my recipe, but I cannot give it as a recipe to all of us.
Jet lag is an emotion and you can control your emotions,
no,
right?
For some it bothers more than for others.
Yeah. Okay, so you are the ambassador at large, and that means that it's not just one country that you are the ambassador. I mean, it's not like you're in Afghanistan currently and dealing with that country alone, but it's with all the countries, but on a specific subject. Huh? Could you please explain what the role of cyber ambassador is?
Well, we have as a Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or as actually a Dutch government, an international cyber strategy, which has been formulated together with all ministries and the so-called stakeholder community in the Netherlands to see what are our priorities. And just very briefly, I can say the first one is how to keep the Netherlands safe on cyber. And I will go deeper into that part. The second one is how to protect our values on the internet, like human rights, democratic values. And the third pillar is how to ensure the good internet governance, the basic layers of the internet, and how to work together also with the multi-stakeholder community, and how to build capacity on these subjects in countries who do not have a similar capacity as we have. So that's just in a nutshell,
and it's a lot.
Our policy.
Yeah. Before we dive into the specifics of this role, I mentioned in the introduction, you have a long history of diplomacy, so you know very well what the value of it is. And I think it's often overlooked. If there was no diplomacy, we'd probably live in a completely different world. Could you, from your perspective, tell us a little bit more about what diplomacy achieves in general?
Yeah, diplomacy is basically connecting countries, connecting people, and also influencing. We do not have diplomacy to be amongst friends only. I mean, that's very nice to have meetings with diplomats you all agree. No, it's also just with the countries which you do not agree with, to connect, to have exchanges of opinions, and to try to influence the others. It's a lot of negotiations also at the international level. I just said, how to keep the Netherlands safe on cyber. So we have been negotiating over the past years the norms on responsible state behavior in cyberspace. Now, those are very difficult negotiations with different interests, how to come to a consensus on that one.
And that's not just in the European Union or with the United States and Canada or so, but it would involve like China maybe, and maybe Russia, and maybe that's what you mean.
We negotiate, for instance, on the norms on responsible state behavior within the UN context. That means with all countries of the UN, all member states, 193 countries. So that includes China, Russia, and other countries which we normally do not sit together with often or agree with. So it's a unique forum. It's a difficult forum. Sometimes you have the feeling you do one step forward and 2 steps back, but it's a unique forum where we can sit together. And we work together within the EU also to try to find common positions to strengthen our position during negotiations at the UN level. We also involve, the views of the private sector, academia, in getting our positions, preparing our positions. So it's not a position only of governments. Especially in the cyber world, we want to do it as multi-stakeholder as possible.
Yeah, you represent the whole country, not just a big bit.
And cyber is especially a topic. U.S. head of onto it. You know it more even than I do. It's not only for the private sector. It's not only academia, it's government, but it's a whole of society. Mm-hmm. How do we make sure we are safe?
Yeah.
Now, and diplomacy plays a crucial role in negotiating, in connecting. Making sure the other side understands and you understand the other side. I mean, it's a crucial part of a negotiation, and try to influence in the other side.
So it sounds a bit like there's this personal connection that you have with other countries that are in a way unique, and also maybe a first point of entry. So how is if governments talk to each other, is the diplomacy for whatever reason? I mean, of course, we all see when we are at the UN and the world leaders are there, but they're only there for a day or maybe 2, and they can never negotiate among them all. There has to be a lot of preparation. Is that also part of the diplomacy? You think that that you know each other's points of view, so you can find some kind of common ground? Is that?
But diplomacy is a continuous process. I may go just for a few days to New York, for instance, but we have a permanent mission there. We have all our ambassadors from the different countries who meet each other continuously. On the different subjects, so it's not a just come in and then leave again and see each other months later again. We tried also with cyber diplomats around the world. We have 34 cyber diplomats, of course, a specialist also in New York, but also one in Washington. Now we have a new one in San Francisco. So we work at different levels, different platforms, try to influence and make sure that others understand our position in cyber diplomacy.
Yeah, nobody knows.
No, well, it's a reiterative.
I'm sure that if I go to a birthday party and I ask, hey, how many people are involved in cyber diplomacy from between the Netherlands and the United States, for example, not many people can tell.
Of course,
but it's a lot. If I hear you,
yes, we do have quite a bit of capacity. We were actually one of also very early adopters in cyber diplomacy. Mm-hmm. We started, we had a big conference on cyber in 2015. You may remember that one. It was actually still a lot of people who attended that conference. It was one of its first kind. Still a lot of people talk about that. And then we also started Foreign Affairs, so creating a task force on cyber, have a cyber ambassador. I'm the third one. So we were quite early at that stage, and now you see lots of countries having cyber ambassadors or other names for cyber envoy or whatever. So because that means we can discuss at a higher level with each other on these important topics, how to protect ourselves against cyber attacks, how to ensure that the cyber space will remain a secure space also for human rights and democratic values.
Yeah, and the fact that so many countries are actually investing a lot in it shows that it's actually very useful then, huh?
Yeah.
So the Netherlands has historically been one of the pioneers, as I understand it, in the cyber diplomacy. And what about the United States? I think they've caught up quite well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were very active too. They created a strong cyber bureau within the State Department. And of course, also as State Department like we do not work in isolation within the country. They work with the National Security Council, with their intelligence, like we do that same here with our intelligence services, with private sector company, academia. They do the same thing. We were very much working together. And at this moment, we are just watching what's happening at State Department because they took apart actually the Cyber Bureau and they create new structures. So the dust still has to settle to really know who our counterparts will be again.
Yeah, that's for the United States, but you see it all over the world. In Asia, for example, they also work together, correct?
Now, for us, the ASEAN countries and India, for instance, are extremely important partners. In the Singapore International Cyber Week, also very important for the private sector. It's a great opportunity for me to meet lots of countries from the region, to have meetings with China also, but also with Singapore, with other ASEAN countries, to discuss their priorities. And also, for us, for instance, give an example, attribution after a cyber attack. We do that. We just actually did it last week, again with Salt Typhoon. You may have seen that. For other countries, that's a very tricky issue, especially in the Asian region. They don't want to be too open about a cyber attack. Well, they feel the threat. They love to talk about cybercrime, but a state actor to address that, to attribute that, is very difficult. So we help.
You mean it's difficult for a country to accuse another country because it's always really hard to prove?
It's very hard to prove. I mean, just the one I mentioned, Salt Typhoon, and last year we did an attribution also again to China with the so-called coat hanger. It took a long time for our intelligence really to write the advisory, to really detail what how the attack took place and what you have to do against it. But even if you have that as an Asian country, I mean, if China is your big neighbor, you are very reluctant to do it. So we help them say, well, you can also do it in a technical way, at least show that you've been attacked and how it has harmed you. So we have discussions on how do we address this issue, also at diplomatic level, but also at technical level.
But what's the value of this then, that you can speak out? And what would bring in the Asian countries or United States or Europe if you do that?
Well, first of all, we agreed on the norms. We have agreed on 11 different norms at the UN level. And that means that also China, Russia, North Korea, they all agreed on these norms.
Okay. What are they about?
They are 3 don'ts. Don't attack each other's critical infrastructure. And 8 do's, where it also tells you to help other countries. If they request assistance in solving a cyber attack, you have to help them. You have to protect your own critical infrastructure. You have to, human rights online should be protected. So those are 11 different norms.
Those are amazing things that if the whole UN actually underwrites those, that's amazing, right? Yeah. If you don't attack critical infrastructure, I mean, apart from what actually happens in the real world, we'll probably talk about it a little bit later also, but it's at least to agree on. It sounds a bit like other parts of international law that we have, like the Geneva Convention or like the treaties where you don't use cluster bombs in warfare. Huh? It feels like you're trying to establish like a baseline that like rules that everybody should abide by.
Absolutely.
And quite successfully then, because not attacking each other's core infrastructure sounds great if we could pull it off on a worldwide scale.
I must say it's very successful in that we agreed on it. Actually, we just finalized negotiations in a working group, what's so-called open-ended working group in July. We agreed on the final report. And one of the important parts is that international law, that's agreed on, international law is applicable also in cyberspace. So international laws offline and online applicable, and all countries agreed on that. That doesn't mean, but as we all know, that there are no attacks breaching these norms. But at least you have then a basis also to start discussing with the other country. Why are you doing it?
And then when we got back to the example earlier that an Asian country is being attacked by China and they don't want to accuse them of it because they're also dependent on them, that actually helps because, hey, China, you underwrote this thing. And what are you doing? You're violating our agreement. And
your attribution doesn't always have to be publicly. We also have indoor attributions. You sit down and we have seen this. Could also be for criminal cybercrime, and that's also a responsibility of a country. They have to stop cybercrime. Now, if you see acts of cybercrime in a country, you can do it also in closed door sessions and also discuss how can we assist you in stopping this cybercrime. I mean, it sounds all beautiful, and I know a lot of people will be cynical. Yeah, but all the cyber attacks continue.
But you never know what happened if we didn't do the diplomacy.
If you didn't do it, and then you wouldn't have a basis anyway to discuss it with each other. And that we all, because in the end, everyone also knows, we need the digital environment. We created such a wide the whole trade system is also depending on the digital environment. If you deal with your customers, it goes all through the internet and you want to do it in a safe way. And that applies also to Chinese enterprises as for American and European enterprises. So how can we protect our IP, intellectual property? How can we do in a safe way business with other countries without being attacked with ransomware, which is, of course, affecting all of us. So you create a basis for negotiation and talks with other countries.
And what's I understand. So you have this basic rule that we all abide by, that we agree upon, but then someone violates it, and then say some Asian country being attacked by China, then comes forward to China, say, what's the effect of that? It's impossible to measure, probably an impossible question, but all your years of diplomacy, you must have a feel for what there must be a positive effect, otherwise we wouldn't do all this, right? Put all this effort in. Is there maybe an example to show that when you say to China, in this case, hey, you attacked Asian country, you shouldn't do it, huh? Does it then mean that the next time, or they apologize, or the next time they don't do it less, or so? Is that because that must be the goal?
That's in the end the goal. But right now, of course, you still see attacks going on, but you also see that China doesn't like attributions. So that's when we come up with the attribution, is always a reaction, and they say, we are attacked. We are actually a victim ourselves. Mm-hmm. That's often their reaction, that they say, we are being attacked and we are a victim. So at least you touch a certain button in the negotiations, and we also invite them in the past. If you're attacked, please give us an advisory.
Yeah.
We haven't received one.
That would be nice.
We haven't received one, but that's, of course, also with Russia, you see, of course, we've been sanctioning also cybercriminals. That's really affecting cybercriminals. They don't like these sanctions where their funds are being blocked outside Russia.
Yeah. So if you violate the rules that we all abide by, that can be a ground for sanctions.
It can be a ground for sanctions.
And we all know that sanctions, I mean, of course, we all want the sanctions to be much more effective, always. Yeah. But they are really effective, right? If there were no sanctions in the world would be a different place.
I think so, and that's why we discuss also, what kind of sanctions could be effective. We are doing that towards individuals. That's, individuals don't like to be sanctioned because that limits the possibility to travel. That could freeze their bank accounts, and especially with cyber criminals, we have seen also our partners in Australia have seen that it really hurts the cyber criminals. Mm-hmm. Also because then other cyber criminals or criminals know that these criminals have been very successful.
Yeah. So what you're working on is laying out the foundation at least, and then further down the line we will reap the benefits, and it wouldn't be possible without all these efforts.
Now that's of course our goal. Our goal is to do it to try to influence the other side and try to agree that we should create a safe space in the digital domain. But we've seen with conflicts around the world, in real world, it doesn't mean that all international law is effective. As online, there are limitations, but it doesn't mean we should stand back or step back from the rule-based order, which we all have been working on so hard after the Second World War. Then that was when we created all this international law, international humanitarian law, for countries to adhere to. Mm-hmm. And if they don't, it's been discussed in the Security Council. It's discussed at other levels to try to correct countries.
Yeah. At least, yeah. So then, and it brought us years of prosperity, at least in the Western world, right? That there are no wars. I mean, wars are always expensive. It's always, on a grander scale, a stupid thing to do anyway. And this is and all these the rules, whether it's on cyber or indeed on the use of weapons, or it really plays a positive role in this, and that's what we're trying to extend to cyber now.
Yeah. And you mentioned since the Second World War, of course, now we have the conflict within Europe with Ukraine. And our assistance on cyber is also very big toward helping Ukraine to be more resilient against all the cyber attacks. And that's also an effort not only of countries, but together with the private sector. How can we protect the cyberspace in Ukraine?
Could that collaboration exist without diplomacy? So Ukraine gets a lot of intel from America, from certain European national security bodies. Could that exist without diplomacy?
I don't think so. I mean, what we do is, as diplomats, we've created also the so-called Tallinn mechanism together with Ukraine, now 11 countries, helping Ukraine on the civilian side. And there's a different mechanism on the military cyberspace. And there was an effort from diplomats to help, to create a mechanism to help Ukraine. And the fact that Ukraine is still able to pay the salaries, for instance, through the banks.
Thanks to that.
Yeah. So throughout the conflict, that's still, with all the attacks, they're still able to do that. So
I think we've clearly answered how important diplomacy is. But still, we haven't touched everything. We talked about cyber a little bit. There's also a matter of disinformation, for example. That's also part of what you said in the beginning. What are the efforts there?
It's a big challenge. And we talk a lot about hybrid conflicts. So, the gray area, you don't have a kinetic conflict, but it's a lot of sabotage. It's not something new that has been happening all over again, but also you see a lot of activity in the cyberspace. Disinformation campaigns to influence elections. How can we address that? It has been affecting...
tell me. I don't know.
No, it's a challenge, and that's why we launched also an initiative, not only to look at disinformation, how to debunk, because that's then always we talk about how to debunk disinformation, but also how to protect information integrity, because governments also want to inform the citizens. But how do you ensure that the information you spread then is received by the citizen as true information?
Without alteration. You sign the official facts.
Yeah, so that's the big discussion right now with AI, of course. Also, how do we know it's not generated by AI, but still the true source, which try to convey a message to, in this case, like I said, citizens, but it would also be for companies. They want to make sure that if they have a certain information campaign is true, that's received. So we took initiative with Canada, and it's now being discussed with the OECD, the European Organization on Cooperation and Economic Cooperation, how to implement these agreements. There are now 34 countries working together, try to strengthen the information integrity between citizens and to citizens.
How then? Because I think that's an amazing task to
absolutely
achieve.
And that's why we don't sit there as diplomats only together. There was also last year a visit then from especially to Silicon Valley to discuss with the big tech companies, how can you help us with this? And it's a very difficult discussion. Also, with the present administration in the United States, it's not an easy discussion, because they see the DSA, for instance, Digital Services Act, as a threat to the big tech. While we say no, it's also to protect the citizens. And the big tech has an important role to play in making sure that the information on their platforms is not false and is not creating hatred.
Do Google and Facebook have an ambassador at large for these kind of things that is a counterpart for you then? Well, it sounds like it's not just countries; it's then also the powerful companies.
You can say it's certain companies, Google and Meta, Microsoft especially. They have big government policy departments or government affairs departments. Everyone has a different name for that, because they want to really be involved with these discussions. In conferences, you see them very often also actively involved. We have discussions with them. Part of it is also lobbying in Brussels to make sure that the different regulations are not contradicting their commercial interest. But at the same time, they also want to make sure that they can, Microsoft is a big supplier of services to European governments. And they do their level best, we see that also, to try to adhere to the European regulations. And at the same time, there's a tension with the American regulations. So how to deal with that? And they have more or less diplomats, sometimes former diplomats, who are then employed by these big tech companies. We see often former colleagues now working for them on the other side.
And then the idea there is that to get a common understanding, you're defending the general rights of citizens, they are defending their commercial interests, and somehow there needs to be some kind of middle ground to get the best possible outcome. And if that conversation wouldn't happen, then there's nothing in the way to let the algorithms of the social networks make it impossible to find facts. That's what.
That's we sit down with the companies to convince them for the responsibility they have, and they play such an important role now in societies. I mean,
but do they act on this then? Because why would they then?
A good example is GDPR, the data protection regulation. It is European regulation, but now actually world standard. It was adopted early on also in California after the European Union. Then you saw other countries moving, and then the big tech said, well, I mean, we're not going to create different standards for different countries. We just applied the GDPR across the board to all countries.
Yeah, indeed. So, can you please make sure that the regulations are the same in all the countries?
That's our effort, but it's often is also called by some writers as a Brussels effect. But there you see a very positive effect. Right now with the AI Act, you see countries all come to Brussels. Can you help us? Can you tell us more about how to implement these AI Act? We also want to look at it.
Yeah, so countries you mean outside of the European Union and outside of the United States probably.
Well, even I wouldn't say outside the United States, because even in the United States you have a federal government there, and many states are very interested to work closely together with the European Union. Like I give the example of GDPR, but it also applies to other regulations that they're interested to see, okay, how could it be of interest to us? Maybe partly, or just it's not going to be copy-paste to them, but they want to learn how to implement it and what parts could be interested. And that's a role of diplomats also, explaining and trying to see how we can find a middle ground on that.
Yeah, because I can imagine that we are talking about the getting the big tech on board. Those are US-based companies, indeed Google, Meta, and those. And you could see this as a geopolitical thing because it's America versus Europe in a way. But from America's perspective, it's probably the people versus the big tech as well. It's the same battle or same concern or whatever, however you label it. And what you're saying is that certain states recognize this and do want the same thing.
They want, I mean, this right now a big discussion in the United States. I mean, also to what extent they should have full freedom to develop their products, especially with regard to AI, or should it be a stronger governance? That's a strong discussion right now in the United States. And but even within those companies, you see different points of views. It's not all of them. They say, we want to have unregulated playing field and just do what we want. No,
they have children too, huh?
They have children too. They see also the threats they could do if you do not create a good governance. It's interesting also the discussion with China. China also is looking for AI governance to create safe AI applications because they want to have a stable society. And the same, so they also, discussing worldwide. When we had the conferences on AI safety in London, later on in India and Paris, China was at the table as well. They wanted to be there to discuss, okay, what kind of governance do we need? How do we discuss it? And at UN level, there you see the same discussions. Okay, how do we discuss with a scientific panel? How do we look at the risks, for instance, of AI?
Sounds like there's much more common ground that we worldwide feel when we talk about these subjects, then it's being looked at in the media.
But there's common ground on many topics. At the same time, there's a commercial drive of companies, and they want to make sure they're first.
Yeah.
So that there is where governments have to step in our view, the European view, also to control the companies in creating unsafe
and then there's
products.
level playing field, so they don't. Right now, if you make your algorithms best, you will win commercially. But if everybody has to abide by the same rules, then you can all abide by them because nobody has an unfair advantage anymore. That's what.
And our view is also that innovation still can continue. We look at the automotive industry. It's a lot of innovation.
Yeah, highly regulated.
highly regulated.
Yeah. Okay. I want in a minute. I want to ask you about the limits of this diplomacy, because I'm not fully convinced that if we talk to Russia, for example, about things that actually work. But before we do that, there's a treasure hunt, of course, to our viewers, and I'm going to mention a code, and if you send that to code@threat-talks.com, you can actually win a very cool Threat Talks t-shirt. For the first 200 that send us that, will get it shipped. So pay attention. The number is 251202. Good luck. So we've talked about the benefits of diplomacy, but there's always this. Yeah, you mentioned this as well. This kind of skepticism in my mind, because yes, we talk to Russia and in the UN and all that, but we have also agreed that we do not use certain weapons, and they do. They simply they say yes, I will do it, and then the next day, their behavior is different. If you talk to Russians and say, listen, we have attributed this to you, and they don't care or they don't even respond, so what is the use of it? Why would we talk to them? I mean, shouldn't we simply talk to those countries who we do at least have certain common ground with?
I can understand your question. Diplomacy is hard work and often frustrating. The people involved in endless conflicts. I admire them also for being able to continue tirelessly trying to find possible solutions. For the conflict with Russia and Ukraine, we need diplomacy. We need to get people at the table. We need to sit down with them to find solutions. Otherwise, the conflict will go endlessly. So diplomacy is not something new. It's one of the oldest, you could say also the oldest job, one of the oldest jobs, not the oldest, but one of the oldest jobs in the world. It's just trying to bring people together and stop a conflict. You always see at a certain point a conflict, whether it's a cyber conflict or a real world conflict, people getting tired in doing it and want to find solutions. So it's also in the cyberspace. We want to make sure that Russia understands that their behavior is totally unacceptable, not only for us, but also for other countries. It's not only that we are affected by Russian aggression in the cyberspace, but you see it also countries in Africa, in Asia, and they just want it to stop. They want to have a safe cyberspace. So the only way is to keep on negotiating, talking, and trying to find solutions. And it means a lot of endurance. You have to have as a diplomat, as a diplomatic community, to keep on bringing the subject up. And you see, even we had the Pact of the Future last year negotiations in the UN level. Also for the future digital domain was the so-called Digital Compact. And it was Russia till the last moment trying to block it. But then the African Union stepped in and said it's enough. This is so important for us because there's a lot of capacity building in this and we need that. And so they stepped back and they agreed on it.
Yeah. So although our efforts towards Russia may directly not lead to any effect, since we are all talking, are all at the table, there's someone else who has actually a more is more intertwined with the interests of Russia, then can make the difference. Yeah. So there's the power of the network then.
Power of the network. We all know that Russia tries to seek influence within Africa, so they don't want to have Africa against them. And we also tried with tools. We have a beautiful Women in Cyber program at the UN level, where we have been training now about 50 women together with some other countries from countries who were not actively at the table before. and to ensure more female voices and negotiations, because the digital domain affects all of us, men and women. So we should also involve more women at negotiations. Highly successful, but it also means that you create a network of around 50 countries who were otherwise not actively involved. They understand the subject. They have been trained also by us. They can take their own independent positions, but they understand our position. And I always say it's a highly successful program, very simple program, but it helps also to create more agreement on the important topics, not only within Europe, but in Africa, in South America, in Asia, where they all came from.
Understood. In a later episode, we have Bart Groothuis here. He is in the European Parliament and talking about cyber and data sovereignty as well. He wants to make sure that Europe has an infrastructure on their own. Huh? So, and that's part of, I can imagine why. I mean, we do the same with food, for example. But say we succeed in that. That means we get to a kind of a splinternet. Huh? Like in a way, the internet of China is different from the one in Europe and America. And in the Middle East, they have a separate version of it. But how realistic is this? I mean, like you mentioned, the payments internationally and the shipping and everything is connected. You mentioned that a couple of times. Will the role of diplomacy then go less if we all do our own stuff, or will it become even more important?
Now, I think the important part of what he tries to advocate is to make sure that we have more sovereignty. Right now, we depend highly on American infrastructure, and now as Europe, also as Netherlands government, we say we have to create at the digital stack. We are highly influential with ASML. But at all levels, we should create more autonomy. It's ridiculous that we're so dependent on US companies for our data. So there we create sovereignty. But the internet still is it is a connection of about 80,000 networks. And the internet is crucial for the private sector to do business, for diplomats to communicate, for all governments at all levels, health sector. That will not stop. You mentioned Splinternet. I mean, of course, I know the term. I always give the example of Netflix. In the Netherlands, you receive something different than if you would see Netflix in Singapore, United States. So even in those platforms, you see already a difference in between within one platform.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't
finish my movie that I downloaded at home while I'm abroad. Yeah.
And I still believe that we should continue to find connectivity with the world. There will not be possibility for all African, Asian, Pacific countries to have their own sovereignty. So we should be there also to help them to have choice. At least that they have choice also where they have the connectivity. But as Europe, as such a big market, we are, as Europe as a whole, one of the biggest markets in the world. We should be more autonomous in our services, in the digital services.
Yeah, like lots of production is in China, and that's both for Europe and for United States true. You might want to look at how dependent you are, especially if it's like or medicines, for example. It's a whole different topic, of course. Yeah, in a similar way. Okay.
And maybe one remark with China. I mean, a lot of Chinese products come this way. We have now also the Cyber Resilience Act going to be implemented.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a crucial act to make sure that all products are safe in use, that their design is already secured by design and not just an add-on. And, we have to make sure that it complies with some regulations. And I think that's crucial. I always compare it. If a car would be the same quality as lots of software and hardware, it would be off the road in 20 minutes.
Yeah, there's this famous comparison that Bill Gates one day, it was in the 90s or so, where Bill Gates said, if the car industry would be as innovative as the IT industry, then we would have cars that go like a million kilometers to the gallon, and they would go super fast and super safe, no deaths and everything. And then the response of General Motors was, well, if that was the case, then the car would stop for no reason, and we would have to press weird buttons and to reboot, and we would somehow simply accept all this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I also want to talk to you about you are everywhere in the world, and you see a lot of initiatives that work well, huh? And so you see so much. Is there anything that we can also tell to our viewers? Think of this thing. Maybe we should invest in more in offensive capability. Maybe we should test whatever more. You must have some.
Well, let me mention two. One we're really working on within the government cyber space also is to be more proactive. And we try to create coalitions with that. And that means that we're not sitting back and waiting till we're attacked and then, trying where does it come from and write advice for, etc. But really being able, together with our intelligence services, with our Ministry of Defense, but maybe later on with the police and our NCSC, to analyze what's happening, what kind of behavior do we see? Do we see campaigns being organized to prepare an operation? And then how to disturb that. So being more proactive, not wait till we're attacked. And we see possibilities doing that together with other countries. Now that's one. Another.
Yes, okay, we're going to ask a question to make that clear to me. So what does that? Because does that mean if a certain country is being attacked, or a company or some kind of government body is being attacked, that you share what you see and somehow dissect how you're being attacked and share that knowledge so others can put measures in place to like so threat intel sharing? Is that the kind of thing you mentioned?
No, that's reactive already. But that's last year in February when we published the code hanger. This was a very detailed advisory. It was published through a national NCSC, so for everyone to read. Even the Chinese could take a copy of it.
They could read how they should do better.
Possibly. But no, we do share, and that's maybe already a message also to the CISOs and to companies. You have to be open on your tech. You have to inform our NCSC, and they also depend on getting information together. If we are fed by the whole private academic sector, etc. But what I said, being proactive is be there already before being attacked. To see already campaigns being prepared, because a cyber attack is not something someone just decides on one day, let's attack tomorrow.
It's the last day of a lengthy process.
Yeah, it's a lengthy process, very detailed, well prepared process often, and that you can try to prevent and disturb that process. Another example is just organized by the United States last year, and it ended in August, is the AI Cyber Challenge. It was organized by DARPA together with the big tech companies, and it was actually meant to invite teams to attack using AI and to attack systems and try to see if using AI, how to get into networks. And that's one thing that's also being discussed in our National Cyber Security Council, where I'm a member of. That we do not have enough knowledge as Europe on offensive cyber operation using AI. And being better able to defend yourself, you need also know the offensive side. So there are thoughts now being developed. Is that possible to do that similar challenge also in Europe with the European teams, European cybersecurity companies taking part as sponsors? Maybe for Antwoord would be of interest. So that's the kind of initiative I think would also be very interesting to look at.
Okay, clear. Lastly, if I am a CISO or a CEO of a company, there's a lot I think you can learn from how diplomacy works and what are the success factors. So in the very unlikely event that you would do a career change and become a CISO of a financial institution, say, what would you change or add, or what advice could you give to a CISO to do?
First of all, I do have a lot of contact with CISOs. Already when I just started, I just contacted my own CISO from the ministry, and he wasn't aware. I mean, there was. You see that there's a disconnect, and now we're very well connected between the CISO and our policy side. But also the National CISO Day, I always try to attend. I have good contact with Dimitri van Zandvliet, the CISO of Dutch Railways, who's also heading the CISO platform. And for me, it's crucial that CISOs are not only looking at their own company and not only being inward looking and say, well, as long as everything is good, well here inside, then we are safe, because tomorrow it can be different. So you have to be open, you have to communicate. Like I try to be in contact with CISOs. CISO can also be actively outward looking, be in contact with our NCSC. I mean, if they could be in contact with me, for instance, I need those experiences, this hardcore experience from companies. What are your challenges? What are you up to against? Because that helps me. And that helps me also being better in protecting the Netherlands and protect the companies who are being the target of many attacks a day. I once had a meeting with maybe 200 entrepreneurs, and I asked them, okay, who's been attacked last year? I saw 3 little fingers going up. And I said, you have to be open. I mean, it's important to share amongst ourselves. It's, there's so many attacks today. But people are still reluctant to acknowledge that.
And if you would do CISO diplomacy, where you would learn from each other first informally, and then understand each other's position, and then collectively you would be feel more free, maybe to share this for everyone's benefit. Because I mean, the cybercriminals, let's face it, they do work together very well. They have a whole ecosystem in the dark web and everything. We have different episodes of Threat Talks that do detail precisely that.
And you see it with the big responsible companies like ASML, like the banks. They look at their whole supply chain and how to improve the cybersecurity in the whole supply chain. But that also means for small, medium-sized companies, they have a responsibility to make sure their cybersecurity is in order, that they have the cyber hygiene in order, which is, I mean, attackers, cybercriminals still use known vulnerabilities, which could have been patched. You could have been updated with just two-way verifications. Very simple things are still not being applied and making organizations vulnerable.
And talking CISO from within the supply chain, from CISO to CISO, talk about these and share intelligence, and that actually helps strengthen your chain then.
Yeah.
And as we all know, if your supplier suffers from a breach, there's not much you can do, especially after the fact. And even before, you can do very little, but in a way, CISO diplomacy, if I may coin that term, then that may help there.
Yeah. And also with the different conferences, you've been to the RSA, and there you see also the CISO, for instance, the government CISOs go there, but also CISOs from companies. They are there also to learn a lot on the threat intelligence, what's happening, and where do I have to be prepared for. And there you see
the RSA conference is not about the conference itself, but about meeting all the people that go there, because we're all there. So
yeah. But getting also a lot of information in and making contacts. And that's where you see diplomats and entrepreneurs together.
Great. Thank you very much. It's a lot of insights. I think it's became quite clear what the value of diplomacy in general is, and cyber diplomacy. To me, it's a whole new world that embodies much more than you would initially think. It's great that it's here. Thank you very much. And I'm the rule-based international order that you mentioned as a basis is that I didn't realize it's that important for to build everything else upon, and to strive for less breaches, which is our common goal in the industry, I would say. Thank you very much. Even the international law is underwritten by Russia. I didn't know that. It's a good start. Thank you so much. And you're leaving for Japan, Seoul. Good luck, and keep it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lieuwe. It was a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure as well. And to our viewers, thank you very much for tuning in this time. If you liked what you saw today, please like it because that helps us spread the word further. And if you liked it very much, then also press the subscribe button if you didn't already do so, because that means you will have the next episodes in your inbox as well. I say goodbye to you one more time. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Threat Talks, a podcast by Onto It Cybersecurity and M6. Did you like what you heard? Do you want to learn more? Follow Threat Talks to stay up to date on the topic of cybersecurity.